An attack takes place in Red Sea by the Houthi rebels. Why should it be bothering you? Indian export market being impacted by an attack in the Red Sea? Is your pocket being impacted more by this attack? All this and much more on a special conversation with General Philip Campose, retired Vice Chief of the Indian Army, in the rest of the story. Welcome to this special conversation. With me, very special guest, retired Vice Chief of the Army, General Philip Campose, with us today in our studios. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for calling me.
The attempt, sir, through these conversations is to let the public know the relevance, the significance of events which are unfolding in the strategic and the diplomatic space. Today, we're going to talk about the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. How does it impact your lives? How does it impact my life? How does it impact India? What is it that we should know? What is it that we do not know? That's why Gen Campos is here with us. How should we look at the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, sir, from an Indian landscape? What is it that should be of concern to us?
Overall, what should be of concern to us as far as the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, as far as that is concerned, first, that it signifies escalation. And escalation means that what has started on the 7th of October could well continue for a very, very long time, and it could get more and more dangerous. So that is one big issue that comes out of these Houthi attacks, which have sort of started in November and are sort of on the increase. There are more than 25 attacks so far. The other issue is related to the economy. As these attacks continue, more and more ships will go around the Cape of Good Hope instead of taking the shortcut through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. And these have implications both from the cost of exports, cost of trade, and also the delay in these items reaching the other end.
I was looking at some stats which you pointed out in your article also, and we're going to put up General Cambose's article on our website too. There were 20 missile and drone attacks on merchant shipping with links to Israel and the US. An Israeli-linked cargo ship, the Galaxy Leader, has been hijacked. Its crew has been taken hostage. Does it not end up having an adverse impact on international trade routes as well then?
It does, because much of the, as far as the overall global trade is concerned, maybe about 20% passes through the Red Sea. But as far as Asia-Europe trade is concerned, at least 40% goes through this area. And considering that these attacks have been going on now for about almost 2 months, what is happening is that 95% of the ships have already started diverting along the longer route. And the longer route means anything from 9 days to 14 days in the cargo reaching the other end. And we are talking about all sorts of cargo. We are talking about oil. We are talking about liquefied natural gas. Everything is now going to get delayed by about 2 weeks. And all this means inflationary pressures will increase, the cost of all these items will increase, and insurance costs are going to skyrocket. With every passing day, with every passing attack, the insurers are going to reinsure and make sure that you are paying much more premium. At the end of this, all this means that economies are going to be hit. A country like India, the cost of exports have doubled. It means that the exporters' profits are almost eaten up completely.
Because I'm looking at the cost of shipping a 40-foot container from China to Northern Europe. You argue, sir, is going up from $1,500 to $4,000 because this is over 150%. It's bound to have a massive inflation impact.
Yes, and then when you look at the Indian exports similarly, a 24-foot container, I'm told, has gone up from $600 dollars to $1,500. That is more than twice. All this is going to impact on our trade, on the profits, on the delays. So we are going to have inflationary pressures as well as pressures on the economy as far as this year is concerned.
Let's look at it diplomatically, sir. The Houthi attacks now escalating into an Iran-US configuration. We know the positions which have been taken by India. The foreign minister has just gone to Iran because we have interest in developing the Habar port as well. How does India navigate this diplomatic territory? On one hand, our business interests, our strategic interests with the US, and then on the other, our desire to have our business strategic interests aligned with Iran as well.
Diplomatically, India is at an advantage. We are not really part of this conflict, and we are talking with all sides. So to that extent, we can talk to the Western countries who are seen on one side of the spectrum, along with Israel. And then on the other side, you've got the global South, you've got the countries who are involved in this conflict. You are involved with the Arab countries, the Sunni Arab countries, the Shia countries. So there are a lot of players in what is happening, but India is in a position diplomatically to talk to all these sides. So if our foreign minister had made a trip over the weekend to Iran and met the leadership in that country, obviously there are two issues. One, he's talking as a representative of the global community, and he's trying to make sure that escalation doesn't take place. And there is some conversation going on with Iran, which is seen as one of the major players in this entire conflict. And on the other hand, he's looking at the Indian point of view, that how do we protect Indian interests, both economically, as far as what's happening in the Red Sea today is concerned. Attacks on Indian ships have taken place even closer to our shores. In the month of December, we had a couple of attacks which were closer to our shores. So that is again something, and one of those attacks were attributed to having come out of Iran. So that is one side of it, that we are trying to protect our interests economically as well as strategically. Because there is a strategic angle, what is developing as far as the larger picture of US, Iran, and even in the overarching context of the relationships between Russia, China, Iran on one side, and the Western countries on the other.
That's a point which I think from an Indian standpoint we need to look at closely, isn't it? Because on one hand, we've seen how during the Ukraine-Russia crisis, we very cleverly, we continue to ally ourselves with Russia despite strong protests. Now when it comes to Iran, is it not true that there is now a new axis which is emerging? There's Iran, China, Russia on one side. How do you think that India can now navigate this territory? Because if Iran, Russia and Chinese axis is working together, Chinese are breathing down our neck along our domestic borders, we wish to have our relationship going with Russia. Does it not give you a very complicated one scenario, sir?
See, it's not really that complicated. If you look at the overall equations, global equations that we have been seeing developing over the last few years. Russia-Ukraine war is taking place now for it's almost 2 years. But what's important to see is that Russia is sort of aligned to China. And then there is an axis which is developed with Iran and some other countries. In a way, what has started with the Israel-Hamas war and what's happening with the Houthis is actually a subset of that war, is also an implication of the larger war, what we picture as we were seeing as emerging in Ukraine. There is a sense that did the Russians instigate the Iranians to instigate the Hamas and the Houthis to sort of take off the pressure in Ukraine? That's one of the theories that is being put forth. So the sides have not really changed, and fortunately, like I said right in the beginning, India has channels of communication with all these countries. So to that extent, the very fact that our foreign minister could fly across to Tehran over the weekend is not something that any of the Western countries could do, or maybe even some of the players, Sunni Arab players who are involved in the conflict, whether they can walk in so confidently and deal with Iran, which is seen to be a major player in this conflict.
Well, we've looked at it strategically, we've looked at it diplomatically, sir. A lot has been made out over the last couple of months about the IMEC corridor, the India-European trade route. Where do you think this Houthi attack and this IMEC corridor, is it an opportunity actually for India?
Definitely in the long term. At this point, the IMEC corridor is only a concept. It's an idea which needs a lot of working on. We heard about it during the G20 summit, on the margins of the summit when an MOU was signed. It's the India, Middle East, European corridor, essentially linking India, that is Mumbai and Mundra ports on the Indian west coast, to UAE, Jebel Ali, and then from there go through Saudi Arabia, through Riyadh, onto Israel and the Haifa port, and from there cross into the Mediterranean onto Greece, and through Greece into Europe. Now, this is the general concept. It's not a very new idea, but this is something which was talked about and as some sort of an alternative to the BRI. As a concept, it sounds good.
But in execution, where is the challenge?
And as far as the execution is concerned, there are many challenges. Firstly, as in all such projects, the funding. We have to be very clear who's going to fund this. As overall, the understanding is that the United States is going to fund this. And the United States and obviously Europe will also get involved. That they are going to fund this thing. And basically, it's coming in two parts. It's India getting linked to the Middle East, and the second part of the Middle East getting linked to Europe. Now, in both this, like I said, the first challenge is funding. The second is there's going to be a lot of construction activity. And we have seen how the BRI has developed. There is talk about the Piraeus port in Greece, which is supposed to be at the end of this corridor, that the link into Europe comes through Piraeus. But if you know the history of Piraeus and the BRI, the Piraeus was seen as a problem when the BRI started and the China, the Costco company took over the Piraeus port. There was a major strike by the trade unions, Greek trade unions in Piraeus. But now, 13 years down the line, Piraeus is a success story as far as the Chinese are concerned, not only in developing the port, but also the city. Piraeus has developed as a result of these Chinese endeavors. And then you've got the railway line, which goes from Piraeus to Budapest through Skopje in Macedonia and Belgrade in Serbia. And from there it goes into 9 other countries. All this has happened. So when you look at that part of it, where somebody, China and the BRI is already active, I don't know how we are going to go and displace the Chinese in a place where they're already so successful and active. So there are lots of things. Essentially, it's funding, then the commitment, the construction, quality of construction, what we are going to see, because we are talking of a corridor which has railroads, which has ships, ship to rail, and then we've also got road transportation.
So finally, sir, we're at the beginning of 2024. We're just a couple of months away from our next Lok Sabha elections. From a diplomatic standpoint, where do you think, in the context of what has just happened in Maldives now, what continues to evolve along the Indo-Chinese border? How would you identify the main challenge at the beginning of 2024 as far as diplomacy is concerned, diplomacy and strategic affairs?
As far as 2024 is concerned, as far as security challenges are concerned, one thing we've learned out of what's happened in 2022 and 2023 is to expect the worst at all times. We can never sit back and say that things are going fine and the likelihood of a sudden black swan event, whether it's a Russia-Ukraine war or an Israel-Hamas war or now the Houthi attacks, we can't sit back and say these things will not happen because that's the trend worldwide. There was a feeling that we are away from those times when countries would attack each other. But now we have to be prepared for such black swan events. And then there are the possibility at all times which exists as far as China and India are concerned, and China and India and Pakistan are concerned, that you can always expect that there could be a flare-up on the disputed borders. So this is something which will be as much relevant in 2024 as it has been in 2022, in 2023, and it has already started from what we have seen in Jammu in recent times in 2024.
Okay.
As far as the neighborhood is concerned, now that's a diplomatic challenge. That is something which has always been on the cards. There has always been an understanding that if India has to rise, it has to start with its influence, positive influence over South Asia, and then further extending into the extended neighborhood, which includes Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia. Now that is somewhere where our diplomacy should be working. At this point, whatever is happening in Maldives, whatever is happening in Nepal, what's happening in Bhutan, there are developments in Bangladesh. Pakistan, in any case, is seen as an adversarial country. So there are lots of diplomatic challenges, and it remains on our political leadership and our diplomats to ensure that we remain on top of things and we have good relationships with, to start with South Asia and then with countries in the extended neighborhood.
All right, General Campose, great pleasure to have you with us today in our studio, sir. We look forward to more such conversations with you. General Campose will be with us every month, twice a month. If you have any questions, feel free to write to us. You can tweet to me directly on my Twitter account, and we'll take your questions to General Campose. Thank you for watching this video. I'm Bhupendra Chaubey, and if you've liked what you've watched, well, feel free to subscribe to us. You can track me on my social media platforms. You can write to me, and we'll take your question up with our next guest on this series.